They changed the locks on Thanksgiving. My whole family inside, laughing and eating, while I stood on the porch in the rain. Show us some love by subscribing today. And don't forget, tell us in the comments where you're listening from. We read every message. The rain started at 3:47 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day. I know because I checked my phone 17 times in the first hour, standing on the porch of my childhood home at 2847 Cascade Road in southwest Atlanta, my key turning uselessly in a lock that had been changed without warning. Through the window, I could see them. My mother setting the table with Grandma Jean's china, the good stuff she'd inherited 2 years ago. My sister Destiny laughing, her head thrown back in that theatrical way she had, her daughter, my niece, running through the living room. My brother Marcus pouring wine. My father carving the turkey. A whole family inside, warm and dry, celebrating Thanksgiving like I'd never existed. And me on the porch, my carefully made sweet potato pie getting soaked through its carrier, rain plastering my hair to my face, my coat already drenched because I'd parked on the street like I always did, never wanting to take up space in the driveway. Always making myself smaller. Always trying not to be a burden. I knocked again. Harder this time. Through the door, I heard laughter. Someone said something I couldn't make out, and they all erupted. The sound felt like a physical blow. I knocked again, pounding now. Mama, it's me. It's Jordan. Open the door. The laughter didn't stop. If anything, it got louder, more performative. They knew I was out here. They had to know. My phone buzzed. A text from Destiny. Maybe you should have thought about family before you left. We're celebrating with people who actually care about us. The message hit like ice water. Left. I didn't leave. I went to graduate school. I took a job in Chicago. I came back for holidays, sent money when they asked, showed up for birthdays and emergencies. I'd just driven 8 hours through traffic to be here. I called my mother. Straight to voicemail. I called my father. Same. Marcus didn't even have his phone on. The rain came harder, and I stood there, 29 years old, with a master's degree from Northwestern, a good job at a consulting firm, and absolutely no idea what I'd done to deserve this. Child, you're going to catch pneumonia out here. I turned. Mrs. Eloise Morrison stood on her porch next door at 2851 Cascade Road, wrapped in a burgundy cardigan, her silver hair perfect despite the weather. She was 78, had lived next to my family for 40 years, and had been my grandmother's best friend since before I was born. Mrs. Morrison, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. They changed the locks. I can't get in. Her face darkened. I saw. I've been watching for the last hour and a half. Come inside, baby. Come get dry. I should wait. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe. Jordan. Her voice was firm. It's not a mistake. Come inside now. Something in her tone made me obey. I grabbed my pie and overnight bag from the porch and followed her through the rain to her house. Mrs. Morrison's home was exactly as I remembered from childhood visits, immaculate, smelling like vanilla and lavender, photos covering every surface. She led me to the bathroom, handed me towels, and by the time I emerged, she had tea ready and a slice of pound cake on the table. Sit, she said, and I did. From her dining room window, you could see directly into my parents' house. The curtains were open, the lights bright. I watched my family move through rooms I'd grown up in, celebrating a holiday I'd driven 8 hours to share with them. How long has this been planned? Mrs. Morrison asked quietly. I don't know what you mean. Jordan. She put her hand over mine. I watched them change those locks 2 days ago. I watched your sister pack up your room last month. She took 3 loads to Goodwill. I watched your mother take down your photos from the hallway. This wasn't spontaneous, baby. This was deliberate. The words settled over me like a blanket of snow, cold and suffocating. Why? My voice cracked. What did I do? Mrs. Morrison's expression was a mixture of sadness and something else, anger, maybe. You know your grandmother Jean loved you something fierce, don't you? Yes, Grandma Jean had died 2 years ago from complications of diabetes. I'd flown home, paid for half the funeral because my parents claimed they couldn't afford it, and held my mother while she sobbed. Jean saw things clearly, Mrs. Morrison continued. She saw how they treated you. The golden child and the scapegoat. Destiny could do no wrong. Marcus got away with everything. But you had to be perfect, and even then, it was never enough. I'd never heard anyone say it out loud before. Hearing it from someone else made it real in a way it had never been when it was just my own thoughts. She talked to me about it for years, Mrs. Morrison said. Worried about you. Watched you work yourself to the bone trying to earn love that should have been freely given. She wanted to do something about it, but she was afraid of tearing the family apart. She left everything to my mother, I said. The house she owned, her savings, everything. Not everything. Mrs. Morrison stood and walked to a cabinet. She pulled out a folder, thick with documents. Jean set up a trust fund 20 years ago. Put money in it every month. When she died, she had $175,000 in that trust. She left specific instructions that it was to be given to you on your 30th birthday, or earlier if you were ever, she paused, choosing her words carefully. If you were ever cast out by the family. I stared at her. What? Your grandmother knew this day might come. She saw the resentment building. The way your success highlighted their failures. The way your independence threatened their control. Mrs. Morrison placed the folder in front of me. I'm the executor of Jean's trust. She named me because she knew your mama couldn't be trusted. And baby, what I watched happen on this porch today. That's exactly what Jean was afraid of. I opened the folder with shaking hands. Legal documents, bank statements, letters in my grandmother's handwriting. My dearest Jordan. If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and something has happened that proves what I always feared, that your family would one day turn on you completely. Not because of anything you did wrong, but because your light makes them confront their own darkness. I've watched you your whole life, baby girl. Watched you excel in school while Destiny barely graduated. Watched you work 3 jobs to pay for college while Marcus dropped out twice on your parents' dime. Watched you build a career while they stayed comfortable and stagnant. And I watched them resent you for it. Every achievement was a reminder of their own mediocrity. Every success was a threat to the family narrative they'd built, that Destiny was the special one, Marcus was the troubled genius, and you were just there. Dependable. Boring. Expected to give and never receive. This money isn't much, but it's yours. Free and clear. Don't give them a penny. Don't let them guilt you. Don't let them back in once they discover you have resources they can't control. You deserve better than them, Jordan. You always have. Love always. Grandma Jean. I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face, while Mrs. Morrison sat quietly across from me. There's more, she said gently. The house next door, 2849, Cascade Road, the one between your parents and me? Jean owned that too. She bought it 15 years ago as an investment. It's been rented out, but the current tenant's lease ends in 2 months. That house is also yours, Jordan. She left it to you in the trust. I couldn't breathe. My mother doesn't know. Your mother thinks Jean only had the one property she lived in, the one your mama inherited and sold immediately. Mrs. Morrison's voice carried an edge. Jean kept this house secret because she knew what would happen if your family found out. They'd have pressured her to sell it, to give them the money, to split it among all the grandchildren. Jean didn't want that. She wanted you to have security. A home. A place they couldn't take from you. Through the window, I watched my mother refill wine glasses. Destiny was taking selfies with the food. Marcus was on his phone. None of them looked toward Mrs. Morrison's house. None of them wondered where I was or if I was okay. They'd locked me out in the rain on Thanksgiving, and they were celebrating. What do? I whispered. Mrs. Morrison squeezed my hand. You accept what your grandmother gave you. You walk away from people who would do this to you. And you build the life Jean knew you were capable of building. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed in Mrs. Morrison's guest room, listening to the rain, reading and rereading Grandma Jean's letters. There were dozens of them in the folder, written over years, tracking my life. Jordan made honor roll again. Martha barely acknowledged it at Sunday dinner. Too busy praising Destiny for getting a C in algebra. Jordan got into Northwestern with a full scholarship. The family seemed more upset that she was leaving than proud of what she accomplished. Marcus said she was abandoning them. He's 25 and still living at home rent-free. Jordan sent money again. Martha called me complaining that it wasn't enough, that Jordan makes all that money and should do more. Jordan makes $45,000 a year and has student loans. Destiny makes nothing and gets everything. My grandmother had seen it all. Documented it all. And she tried to protect me the only way she knew how. The next morning, I met with Mrs. Morrison's lawyer, Kenneth Wright, at his office on Edgewood Avenue. He walked me through everything, the trust fund, the property, the legal protections Grandma Jean had put in place to ensure my family couldn't contest or access any of it. Your grandmother was very thorough, Mr. Wright said. She anticipated every possible challenge. This is airtight. When can I access the funds? Immediately. The triggering event, what Jean termed exile from family, clearly occurred yesterday. I'll need you to sign some paperwork, and the funds will be transferred to an account in your name within 72 hours. I signed everything in a daze. The property is yours as well, he continued. It's a 3-bedroom house, well maintained, currently rented for $1,800 a month. The tenants are moving out January 15th. You can move in, continue renting it, or sell. Your choice. A house. My own house. In Atlanta. Next door to the family that had just thrown me away. There's one more thing, Mr. Wright said, sliding another document across his desk. Jean left instructions that once the trust was activated, I was to send a letter to your parents informing them of the inheritance and its terms, specifically that they have no claim to any of it and that any harassment or attempt to manipulate you regarding these assets would result in legal action. Will that make things worse? He looked at me with kind eyes. Jordan, they locked you out in the rain on Thanksgiving. Things can't get much worse. At least this way, they'll understand there are consequences for their actions. I authorized him to send the letter. The call came 3 days later. I was back in Chicago, back in my apartment at 525 West Aldine Avenue trying to focus on work, when my phone exploded. 12 missed calls from my mother. 8 from my father. 17 texts from Destiny, escalating from confused to angry to threatening. I listened to one voicemail. My mother, her voice shrill. Jordan, what is this nonsense about Mama's money? You call me right now. This is family business. You don't get to just take what belongs to all of us. Call me back. What belongs to all of us? Not congratulations. Not I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. Just immediate entitlement to money they didn't know existed until they couldn't have it. Destiny's texts were worse. WTF Jordan? You stole from Grandma? This is so typical of you. Always so selfish. You OWE us. We're family. That money should be split between all the grandkids. You can't just keep it all. You're disgusting. You probably manipulated Grandma when she was sick. I blocked all of them. Every number. Then I called Mrs. Morrison. They know, I said. I figured. I saw your mama marching over here this morning. I didn't answer the door. Mrs. Morrison chuckled. Let her knock. Jean made me promise not to engage with them about this. It's between you and them, and baby, you don't owe them engagement either. They're saying I stole from Grandma. That I manipulated her. Let them say it. Jean's letters document everything, the timeline, her reasons, her sound mind. They can't contest this trust, Jordan. It's been active for 20 years. She put money in it consistently. There's no legal ground for them to stand on. This is just them realizing they underestimated both you and Jean. But knowing they had no legal ground didn't make the emotional assault easier. 4 days, the messages continued from extended family members, from friends of the family, from people who'd gotten the story secondhand. Jordan stole her grandmother's money, Jordan manipulated a sick old woman, Jordan abandoned her family and now she's profiting from it. The narrative was vicious and consistent. I was the villain. They were the victims. No one mentioned Thanksgiving. No one acknowledged locking me out. No one apologized. My cousin Shanice was the only one who reached out with kindness. I heard about what happened on Thanksgiving. Aunt Martha told everyone you didn't show up. But Mrs. Morrison told my mom the truth. I'm sorry, Jordan. You didn't deserve that. I cried reading that message. One person in my entire extended family who bothered to question the narrative. I gave notice at my job in Chicago 3 weeks later. My boss was understanding. I'd been working remotely half the time anyway during COVID, and the company was opening an Atlanta office. I could transfer. On January 10th, I drove back to Atlanta with everything I owned packed in a U-Haul. Mrs. Morrison met me at 2849 Cascade Road with the keys. The house was beautiful. Hardwood floors, updated kitchen, a backyard with a garden that Grandma Jean had apparently maintained herself before the tenants moved in. 3 bedrooms, one for me, one for an office, one for guests I'd actually want to see. And right next door, close enough that I could see into the windows, was my childhood home. The family that had discarded me. Are you sure about this? Mrs. Morrison asked as we stood in the empty living room. Living this close to them? It might be hard. Grandma Jean wanted me to have this house, I said. I'm not letting them drive me away from something that's mine. They're the ones who should feel uncomfortable. And they did. I saw my mother's face the day I moved in. She was getting mail from the box when the U-Haul pulled up. Her expression went from confusion to recognition to pure rage in seconds. She marched over as I was unloading boxes. What do you think you're doing? Moving into my house, I said calmly. Your house. This is Mrs. Chen's house. Mrs. Chen moved out. This has been my house since Grandma Jean died. She left it to me. My mother's face went purple. She couldn't have. She only had one property. I inherited it. She had 2. She kept this one private. I picked up another box. Excuse me, I have work to do. You can't live here. Not after what you've done. Not after stealing from your grandmother, from your family. I didn't steal anything. Grandma Jean set up a trust fund for me 20 years ago and left me this property. It's all legal, all documented, and none of your business. I looked at her directly. You locked me out on Thanksgiving. In the rain. Without explanation. You don't get to have opinions about my life anymore. You're being dramatic. We had family business to discuss. Private family business. Without me, I'm not family. She faltered. You know what I mean. You're always so sensitive. We were going to let you in eventually. You just left before we could. I stood on that porch for an hour and a half. I knocked. I called. You knew I was there. My voice was steady, cold. You made a choice. Now I'm making mine. Stay away from me and my property. I walked inside and closed the door. Through the window, I watched her stand there for a full minute before storming back to her house. Living next door to them was exactly as strange as you'd imagine. I saw them daily, coming and going, working in the yard, having family gatherings I wasn't invited to. They saw me too, thriving, renovating my house, hosting my own friends. Destiny tried to approach me once, catching me as I was getting groceries from my car. Jordan, this is ridiculous. We're sisters. You can't just cut us off over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I set down my bags. You texted me that I should have thought about family before I left. You participated in locking me out. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was cruelty. We were upset. You moved away, you barely visit, you act like you're better than us. I visit every major holiday. I send money when you ask. I show up for birthdays and emergencies. I've done nothing but try to be part of this family, and you punished me for having a life outside of it. You have all this money now, this house, and you won't even share. Grandma would be ashamed. That's when I lost my patience. Grandma Jean left me these things specifically because she knew you'd do this. She documented years of you treating me like trash. She watched you coast through life while I worked myself to exhaustion. She saw who you really were, Destiny. And she chose me. Destiny's face contorted. You're a selfish bitch. Maybe. But I'm a selfish bitch with a paid-off house and $175,000 in the bank. You're 31, living with mom and dad, working part-time at a hair salon, with a 6-year-old daughter you can barely support. Grandma Jean saw that too. She slapped me. Hard enough that my head snapped to the side. I didn't hit back. I just pulled out my phone and took a picture of her standing there, my face already reddening. That's assault, Destiny. Get off my property, and don't come back. She ran back to my parents' house, and I went inside, my cheek throbbing, my hands shaking. But I didn't cry. I was done crying over them. Mrs. Morrison came over an hour later with ice wrapped in a towel. I called the police to file a report, just in case you need documentation later. Thank you. Your grandmother knew, she said softly. She knew how they'd react. That's why she made sure everything was airtight. She wanted you to have the resources to protect yourself. I miss her, I said, and finally, I did cry. Not for my family, but for the woman who'd loved me enough to plan for my protection even after death. 6 months later, I'd built a life in Atlanta that had nothing to do with my biological family. I transferred to my company's Atlanta office, working from home most days. I'd renovated the house, new paint, new fixtures, a garden in the backyard that Mrs. Morrison helped me plan. I'd started volunteering at a literacy program in Southwest Atlanta, working with kids who reminded me of myself, smart, hungry for validation, often overlooked. I'd made friends, real friends who chose me, not people obligated by blood. I'd started dating someone kind, someone who couldn't believe my family's story when I told it. And I'd invested the trust fund wisely, working with a financial advisor to grow it, to ensure that Grandma Jean's gift would continue supporting me for years to come. My family tried everything to get to me. They sent relatives to knock on my door. They spread rumors in the neighborhood I'd tricked an old woman, I'd stolen their inheritance, I was mentally ill and needed intervention. They called my job claiming I was unstable. None of it worked. Mrs. Morrison was a one-woman defense squad, correcting lies, sharing Jean's letters with anyone who'd listen, making it clear that what happened on Thanksgiving wasn't a misunderstanding but a calculated cruelty. Slowly, the neighborhood came to understand. The church ladies who'd known Grandma Jean started inviting me to Sunday dinner. The families on the block waved when they saw me. I became part of a community that had nothing to do with the people next door. One Sunday morning, I was planting flowers in the front yard when my niece, Destiny's daughter Amora, wandered over. She was 7, beautiful, with curious eyes. "Hi, Aunt Jordan." "Hi, sweetie. Mama says I'm not supposed to talk to you." "Then maybe you should go back home." She sat down on the grass instead. "Mama talks about you a lot. She's really mad." "I know. She says you stole money from Great-Grandma Jean." I put down my trowel and looked at her. "Did you know Great-Grandma Jean?" "A little. She gave me candy. She was a wonderful woman. And she didn't leave me money because I stole it. She left it to me because she loved me and wanted to make sure I'd be okay." I paused. Sometimes grown-ups don't tell the whole truth about things. Your mama's upset because she wanted that money for herself. But it was never hers to have. Amora processed this. Are you rich now? I'm comfortable. I have enough. Mama says you should share with family. Family shares with each other, sweetheart. That goes both ways. Your mama and I aren't sharing anything right now because we're not really family anymore. That's sad. It is, I agreed. But sometimes it's sadder to stay with people who hurt you than to leave and find people who love you properly. Destiny screamed from their porch, Amora, get away from her right now. Amora looked at me with knowing eyes that had seen too much already, and ran home. That night, Mrs. Morrison and I had dinner on my back porch. She was eating more slowly these days, her arthritis worse, but her mind was sharp as ever. You did good, baby, she said. Jean would be proud. I hope so. Some days it feels like I'm being cruel. Keeping this money, this house, refusing to reconcile. You're not being cruel. You're being wise. There's a difference. She sipped her tea. You know, Jean and I used to talk about what would happen after she was gone. She worried constantly about you. Said you had the softest heart of anyone she knew, and that family of yours was going to exploit it until there was nothing left. She was right. She was. But she was also right about your strength. She said, Eloise, my Jordan's stronger than she knows. When she finally sees clearly, when she finally understands she deserves better, she'll build something beautiful. I just want to give her the tools to do it. Mrs. Morrison smiled. You're building it, Jordan. This house, your career, your life. You're building exactly what Jean dreamed of. It's been 2 years now since the Thanksgiving lockout. I'm 31, firmly established in Atlanta, with a life I've built entirely on my own terms. My family still lives next door. We don't speak. On holidays, I see their cars pile up, their gatherings in full swing. It doesn't hurt anymore. It's just noise from strangers who happen to share my DNA. Mrs. Morrison's health has declined, and I've become her primary caregiver, taking her to appointments, managing her medications, sitting with her in the evenings. She's become the family I chose, and I've become the granddaughter she never had. Last week, she told me something that made everything click into place. Jean made me promise something, she said, her voice weak but clear. Made me promise that if you ever got free of them, if you ever took the gifts she left and built a real life, I was to tell you something. What? That she was sorry. Sorry she didn't protect you more when she was alive. Sorry she played along with their dynamic to keep peace. Sorry she waited until after death to give you what you needed. Mrs. Morrison squeezed my hand. But she said to tell you that she saw you, Jordan. Every accomplishment they dismissed, every hurt they caused, every time you smiled through pain, she saw it all. And she loved you fiercely. I cried then, grieving all over again for the grandmother who'd protected me in the only way she could. She also said, Mrs. Morrison continued, that being locked out of that house on Thanksgiving was the best thing that could have happened to you. Because sometimes we need to be pushed out of toxic spaces before we realize we deserved better all along. She was right. That rain-soaked evening, standing on the porch of a house that had never really been home, I'd been given a gift. The gift of clarity. The gift of seeing exactly who my family was without the fog of obligation and hope obscuring the truth. They changed the locks, but Grandma Jean had given me the key to a different door. A better door. A door that led to a life where I was valued, respected, and loved for exactly who I was. I drive by my parents' house every day. I see them seeing me. I watch their faces as I thrive, as I succeed, as I build relationships they can't touch or contaminate. I see their regret now, their understanding that they threw away something valuable because they couldn't control it. Sometimes destiny stares out her window at my renovated house, my new car, my garden in full bloom. Sometimes my mother lingers by the mailbox when I come home from work, like she wants to speak. Sometimes my father slows his car when he passes mine. But I don't engage. I don't offer olive branches or pathways back. Because Grandma Jean taught me one final lesson through her trust fund and that house and those letters. Love isn't supposed to hurt this much. Family isn't supposed to require you to diminish yourself to make them comfortable. And some doors, once closed and locked against you, should stay closed. I'm thriving in ways I never could have if they'd let me in that Thanksgiving. The lockout was rejection, yes. But it was also liberation. Mrs. Morrison was right, and so was Grandma Jean. Sometimes exile is actually homecoming, just to a place you never knew existed. I found my home. It's at 2849 Cascade Road in southwest Atlanta. Right next door to people who never deserved me. And I've never been happier. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Share your experiences with finding yourself after family rejection in the comments below. And remember, sometimes being locked out is the universe locking you into something better. Hit that notification bell for more stories about resilience, chosen family, and the incredible things that happen when you stop trying to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold you.